At 7:42 a.m., the house felt unusually quiet, the kind of silence that doesn't bring peace but suspicion. My wife, Claire, had already left the bedroom, moving around the house like she was trying not to disturb the air itself. The last thing she had said to me the night before still echoed in my mind. "You'll understand tomorrow." She said it softly, almost lovingly, but her eyes avoided mine. I laughed it off then, thinking it was one of her dramatic moods. But now, sitting alone at the edge of the bed, I felt something tightening in my chest, like the day was waiting to break me in half. At exactly 8 a.m., the doorbell rang. One sharp, precise sound that cut through the silence like a blade. I frowned. We weren't expecting anyone. Claire had already stepped into the kitchen, but she didn't react. That alone was strange. Normally, she'd ask who it was or at least glance toward the door. Instead, she kept stirring her tea, her movement steady, controlled. The bell rang again, longer this time. I got up slowly, irritation mixing with curiosity. I had no idea that opening that door would split my life into a before and after I would never recover from. I opened the door, expecting a delivery guy or maybe a neighbor, but instead, a man stood there in a plain gray suit, holding a sealed beige envelope. He looked calm, almost rehearsed, like he had done this exact moment many times before. "Are you Daniel Carter?" he asked. I nodded. My name sounded heavier in his voice than it should have. Without another word, he extended the envelope toward me. "This is for you. From your wife." My heart skipped. I turned instinctively toward the kitchen, but Claire still hadn't moved. That's when I felt something was deeply wrong. I took the envelope slowly, my fingers brushing against its rough surface. It felt thick, too thick for a simple letter. The man didn't wait for questions. He simply said, "She told me you'd receive it exactly at 8 a.m., Then he stepped back, as if his job was complete. "Wait." I called out, but he had already turned away. I stood frozen in the doorway, the morning air suddenly cold against my skin. My wife had planned this, every second of it, and I was the only person who didn't know what game I was suddenly part of. When I closed the door, Claire finally looked at me. Her eyes were calm, almost distant, like she had already lived through this moment in her mind. "So it arrived," she said quietly. Not a question, an acknowledgement. My grip tightened on the envelope. "What is this?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she walked past me, sat on the sofa, and folded her hands. "Open it," she said. Just 2 words, but they carried the weight of something irreversible. My heart started beating faster, warning me not to continue. But I already knew I would. I tore open the envelope. Inside were photographs, dozens of them. At first, they didn't make sense. Claire in places I didn't recognize. Claire with a man I had never seen before. Claire smiling in ways I hadn't seen in years. My hands began to shake as I flipped through them. There were printed messages, too. Dates, times, hotel receipts. Each piece of paper was like a small explosion, building a picture I didn't want to see. My throat went dry. "What is this?" I repeated, but this time my voice cracked. Claire didn't flinch. She just watched me break piece by piece. I sank into the chair, the photos slipping from my hands onto the floor. My mind tried to fight it. Maybe a misunderstanding, maybe editing, maybe something fake. But the details were too precise, too organized. The stranger outside wasn't random. The 8 a.m. timing wasn't random. This was planned. My wife finally spoke again, her voice low. "I told you you'd understand today." I looked at her, searching for guilt, fear, anything human. But there was only stillness. That was worse than confession. That was certainty. My chest felt like it was collapsing inward. "How long?" I asked, barely able to breathe. She hesitated for the first time. That hesitation hurt more than the photos. "Long enough," she said. Not an answer. A sentence meant to end questions. I stood up suddenly, anger breaking through the shock. "Who is he?" I demanded. Her eyes finally shifted away. Outside, the morning light felt too bright, too cruel. Everything inside me was unraveling at once. Trust, memory, identity. I realized I didn't even know which part of my life had been real anymore. Claire stood as well, walking toward the window instead of me. "This wasn't supposed to destroy you," she said quietly. "It was supposed to end the lie." That word, lie, hit harder than anything else. I laughed once, but it sounded broken. "Whose lie?" I asked. She didn't answer immediately. The silence stretched, heavy and suffocating. The stranger's envelope now felt like a trigger that had detonated everything we built. I understood then that this wasn't just betrayal. It was preparation. Someone had been waiting for this moment to collapse my entire world. By the time the clock ticked past 8:15, I realized something terrifying. The envelope wasn't the truth. It was the beginning of it. And whatever came next, I wasn't ready for.